A Dominican sister friend of mine was instructing her sixth graders. And so it was around Holy Week, and Easter was approaching, and she was a very good and meticulous teacher. So she had been instructing her kids for weeks and weeks and weeks on the Passion and on the Resurrection, and the pastor was coming just to have a little visit. And so she was going to show them how smart her class was, and her class was really smart. And she says, Father, she was Irish. She said, Father, ask them anything you want. They've been studying. So he did. So he said, what were Jesus' last words? And so the class was quiet, and Sister began to sweat a bit because she was worried. But then one brave little girl stood up and she said, I know. They're from the movie The Terminator. I'll be back. Well, in a certain sense, isn't that true? So oftentimes, in the story, of course, Sister was horrified because she had a different sort of narrative in her mind. But in a deeper sense, that's true. That's what he was saying throughout his whole ministry. I'm with you. I love you. No matter where life takes you. Up, down, stressed out, worried, pulverized. No matter where life takes you, I'm walking with you. Friends, that's religion and spirituality at its best. At its best. When it makes God's love real. Not fluffy, not inaccessible, but real. Because don't we have enough bad reality in our life? When I was growing up, there was only a few reality shows, and now, my gosh, there's so many, you can just take your pick, day of the week. And I'm not going to hate on reality shows because they're not bad. Well, some of them are questionable, but they're not bad. They're not bad. But the thing of it is that sometimes we can get the impression that reality is a bad word. It's not. Bad things happen. But so do good things. And the story that we celebrate in the life of Jesus is a narrative of consistency. From the time he was born until the time he died and rose, it was a narrative of loving consistency. Constantly saying to people, don't be separate. Don't be disunified. Enter into the things that separate us, that tick us off, that exhaust us. Enter into these things and find solutions. Diversity is a beautiful thing, but it can be a bit annoying sometimes, right? When your husband or your wife says, okay, I want to have turducken, and somebody says, well, I want to have ham. Well, what do you do? What do you do? Do you have both, or do you go to McDonald's? I don't know what you do. Diversity happens. And sometimes diversity can be very, very annoying. But it can be truly celebrated if we move toward the ability to compromise. And true compromise isn't about this person always being right and that person always being wrong. True compromise is about seeing the truth in the other's perspective and and the other seeing the truth in yours. We don't always have to agree. But aren't we all human beings, endowed with reason and intellect and will and love and the capacity for greatness? If we all have those same gifts, how can we all get it wrong at the same time? Diversity is about seeking truth. And it's about learning how to roll away those stones that block us or impede us from seeing truth. And what might some of those stones be? Well, a big one is when we get hurt, right? We get hurt, and so we shut down our life. And we don't forgive. And the thing that I keep learning about forgiveness is that forgiveness, first and foremost, is about us. And why is that? Because if we don't forgive, a part of our life just shuts down and dies. And we walk through life with no ability to live. A whole part of our life is shut down, and it dies. And we lose an ability to be able to relate with one another. Now, I'm not saying that we don't do bad things to each other. I'm not saying reconciliation is always possible. But I'm saying we don't want to live our lives, even when we get hurt, shut down and pulverized. Because if we do, it's going to be a very long life. Christ has died. Christ has risen. Christ will come again. The beauty in Jesus moving toward the cross was what? Throughout that whole experience that was very difficult to read about and think about, he never stopped loving. When we reflect upon the stations of the cross, what do we see? The poor man's exhausted. And what is he doing? Ministry. He's doing ministry. Don't worry about me. Do we ever do ministry? When we're dealing with our first world problems? Sometimes when we're dealing with our first world problems, and you know what I'm talking about because I'm going like this, our first world problem. I have a headache, so I can't give any charity because I have a headache. I don't have time. I got stuck at a red light for 2 minutes, so I can't respond to this need over here. We have lots of things that we classify as first world problems that aren't. They're our own problems. But if we cease to find a sense of forgiveness in our lives, simple things in our lives that are annoyances become first world problems. And when life becomes first world problems for ourselves, we can't love. And we roll the stone back that Christ has rolled away. The beautiful thing in the gospel that I absolutely love every year is that Mary Magdalene was so faithful always to Jesus. She was one of the few that were at the cross. Women weren't allowed to be near the cross. Only the Roman soldiers who were doing their job were allowed to be near the cross. And where was she and his mother and the other Marys? They were right at that boundary. Because of what? Friendship and love. Friendship and love sometimes ignores boundaries, doesn't it? Ever had someone love you too much? You're good. Get off me. You know? Sometimes we love each other too much. And in a certain way, this weird part of the gospel where Mary is happy to see him, but what does he say to her? Don't cling to me. And it says, woman, don't cling to me, but we have to get that right. He's not hating on Mary Magdalene. What he's saying is that right now is not about catching up. Right now is about proclaiming good news. And when we dwell on our first world problems and our personal dramas and don't get help and don't get support and don't allow the love of Christ in the abstract and in the concrete to touch us, the stone stays in front of us. So, people of God, you look great this morning. If you're here for the first time, hope you come back. If you're not Catholic, that's all right. Keep the faith anyway. Not the Catholic faith, but keep the faith in goodness and in truth and in struggling to forgive. We're all called to something, whether we're religious or not, to be good, positive contributors in this world. How will we do this throughout these 50 days of the Easter season? I'm going to end with a little reflection from our Holy Father, who, isn't it amazing? He talks the talk, but he kind of walks the walk and washes the feet and does lots of things. So this is just a little reflection from him just on Christ's resurrection. He says to us that Christ's resurrection is not an event of the past. It contains a vital power which has permeated this world. Where all seems to be dead, signs of the resurrection suddenly spring up as an irresistible force. So often in our world, it can seem like God does not exist. First world problems, a stone in my face. And all around us we see only what? Persistent injustice, evil, indifference, and cruelty. But it is all so true that in the midst of darkness, something new will always spring to life sooner or later, producing some good and useful fruit. even on used land and grazed land, life breaks through. Stubbornly yet convincingly. However dark things can become, goodness always reemerges and spreads, if we let it. Each day in our world, beauty is born anew, and it rises transformed throughout the storms of history. Values always tend to reappear under new guises, and human beings have risen time after time from situations that seemed doomed. Such is the power of the resurrection, and all who evangelize or share it are instruments and stewards of this to one another. Some folks are saying no one will remember. Some folks are saying, where is your God now? Roll away the stone. See the glory of God. Roll away the stone. Some folks are saying, no one hears my singing. Some folks are saying, where is your God now? Roll away the stone. See the glory of God. Roll away the stone. Forgive. Roll away the stone. See the glory of God. Roll away the stone. Let yourself heal. Roll away the stone. See the glory of God. Roll away the stone. Believe. Roll away the stone.